on the SMART report.
Okay.
I'll tee it off, but I don't want to hog the stage there. So get yourself ready for that. It's all good news. Good.
All right, we are connected and we're live on YouTube. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, dear Amaret. It is 9:37, and I would like to call to order the meeting of the Building and Operating Committee of Thursday, August 25, 2022. But before we begin, please note that this meeting is live streamed on YouTube and recorded. Members of the public are encouraged to watch and listen to the meeting online or by dialing into 415-569-6446 for the audio of this meeting. If you would like to provide public comment at today's meeting, and if you have not already done so, please call 415-569-6446 and let the facilitator know that on which items you would like to speak today. Madam Secretary, please help us and begin by calling the roll.
Thank you and good morning again, everyone. I'm going to start with Director Cochran.
Here.
Director Conroy. Is absent. Director Hernandez.
Here.
Thank you. Director Parr.
Present.
Director Rabbit.
Here.
Director Thier.
Here.
Director Maston.
Here.
Director Garbarino.
Here.
And President Theriault.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum for the B&O, but you also have on the line, as I mentioned, you are a committee of the whole. You have directors. Director Grosball, are you still there? There you go. Director Hill, Director Rodoni, and Director Snyder. Now, staff on the line, we've gained a few since our last meeting. So we have Dennis Mulligan.
Present.
We have Joe Wire.
Yes.
Eva Barr-Furbish.
Present.
Kim Enolius.
I'm here.
Thank you. Madeline Chun.
Here.
Dave Rivera.
Morning, present.
Mona Babauta.
Morning, present.
Morning. Jim Swindler is not here, but on his behalf, we have Michael Hoffman, who's also going to be presenting. Mike,
Present.
are you there? Thank you.
Morning.
Kelly Hopper.
Present.
Thank you. We also on the line, we have Ray Santiago.
Present.
Thank you. And he's also going to be presenting. That confirms all the staff on the line today. Thank you.
Thanks, Amaret. And thank you everyone for being a part. I'll also remind you to mute your microphones until after the staff's presentation, and remember to unmute, of course, when we open up for directors discussion. If we have directors joining us by phone, please use your mute button or *6 to unmute yourself. After the staff's presentation, I will be asking for any questions or comments on the item. Click on the raise hand function if you have a question, or press *9 if joining by phone. If there are any questions, the secretary or I will call on you accordingly. If we miss your raised hand, please speak up or do like I do and just start waving your arms. After discussion, we will ask for any public comment before moving on. Please follow along by referring to the page numbers located on the bottom right-hand corner of your meeting packet. We will begin with agenda item number 3 to approve actions relative to execution of professional services agreement number 2022B061 Golden Gate Bridge Strong Motion Instrumentation Program with the State of California, Division of Mines and Geology. The staff report begins on page 3, and Eva Bauer-Furbish will present this item. Eva, please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to provide a little bit of a background about the instrumentation system. So since 1995, the State of California Division of Mines and Geology Strong Motion Instrumentation Program, also called SMIP, has been managing the seismic instrumentation system installed on the Golden Gate Bridge. SMIP manages similar instrumentation systems on all other toll bridges in California. The Golden Gate Bridge seismic instrumentation system consists of 125 sensors located on the bridge structures and 4 recording stations located on the North Anchorage housing, the North Tower, the South Tower, and Pylon S1. The system is connected to the Sacramento office of SMIP for data transmission and monitoring purposes. The purpose of the instrumentation system is to record information about the intensity of motions imposed on the bridge structures by earthquakes. SMIP transferred this information to the district for the district to determine the required level of post-earthquake inspections and to perform structural analysis to determine required repair measures. The district has recently updated the system by installing new multi-channel recorders, internal high-speed modem, GPS timing and recording equipment with larger memory cards. The updated system is connected to Sacramento by Ethernet for faster and near real-time transmission of data. The last 3-year agreement with SMIP for maintenance and service of the system expired on June 30th this year. Staff recommends that the district enter into a new 3-year agreement with SMIP to continue performing field maintenance and service of the instrumentation system. The scope of services to be provided by SMIP will include the following: semi-annual testing of the system to ensure that the instrumentation components are operational and functioning accurately. Annual physical inspection of the recording system to ensure the reliability of the system. Troubleshooting and repair of the system as necessary to ensure its reliability, including replacement of monitor electronic parts. Quarterly reports of seismic events and maintenance, including preservation of all earthquake records over 2% gravity in amplitude, and a summary of the results of the above maintenance activities. Periodic testing performed off-site by remote electronic control using SMIP-provided communication units. SMIP provided a cost estimate for this scope of work in the not-to-exceed amount of $125,248 for 3 years of performing such services. The district review and discuss the cost estimate with SMIP and determine that the cost is fair and reasonable for the work to be performed. Staff recommends that the Building and Operating Committee recommend that the board authorizes execution of PSA number 2022 B061 Golden Gate Bridge Strong Motion Instrumentation Program with SMIP in the not to exceed amount of $125,248 for the presented work scope and 3-year duration. Staff also recommends that a contract contingency in the amount of $12,525 be established for any additional or changed scope of services that may develop while work progresses. The fiscal year 22-23 Bridge Division operating budget includes sufficient funds to pay for the first year of the SMIP services with the cost of $44,566. The subsequent 2 years maintenance cost will be budgeted accordingly in the future year's Bridge Division operating budget. So with this, I'll be happy to answer any question the committee may have for me.
Ava, thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions or comments from directors at this time? I see David with his hand up. Go ahead, David.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ava. Appreciate it. I'm just curious. Do these sensors also provide all lateral forces against the bridge, and can we use that for our own benefit for other design issues, not just the seismic pieces, of course, but wind forces and everything else that we've been working on.
Right. So in addition to instrumenting for seismic movements, both longitudinally and in transverse directions, we also have sensors that monitor for movements due to wind. So all this data obviously can be used and is used in our design because it's like having the real-time reality check between the structural analysis performed using computers and actually what's going on the bridge and how bridge behaves.
Yeah, great. I think that's great. We have a full-scale wind tunnel in effect there. I think that's great information to have, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, David and Ava, once again. Amaret, if I'm not mistaken, I don't see any other directors with their hands up.
That's correct, and I don't see any hands waving.
So that concludes the discussion on item number 3. But before we take our vote, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item, Amaret?
We have no speakers for this item.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, may I have a motion then on item agenda number 3 to approve actions relative to execution of professional services agreement number 2022B061.
So moved, Rabbit.
Thank you. David.
Second, Cochran.
Thank you for all those seconds. Thank you, Madam Secretary. A roll call vote, please.
Thank you. We're voting on item number 3 with the first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosball.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Aye. Aye.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Thierio.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 12 ayes.
Great, that item passes. We will move on to agenda item now number 4 to approve actions relative to professional services agreement number 2017D30 San Rafael Transportation Center relocation analysis, environmental clearance and preliminary design with Kimley Horn and Associates. The staff report begins on page 7, and Manager of Traffic Engineering and Transit Facilities, Ray Santiago, will be presenting this report. Ray, welcome to you, and please begin your report.
Chair Garbarino, it's Ron Downing, Director of Planning. Before Ray begins, I wanted to introduce him to the committee. He is a key member of the planning department, and this project for the San Rafael Transit Center relocation is a major transit facility improvement that the district is looking at. Ray handles the project as the project manager on day-to-day basis, working with the consultant team, producing materials for distribution to the board and other elements. And he's really done a great job keeping on top of everything as this project has moved forward. So with that, I'd like to welcome Ray to the committee meeting.
Thank you, Ron, and welcome again, Ray.
Ray, before you begin, Director Hill has his hand up, so I'm just going to call on Director Hill.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to comment. My son is a councilman in San Rafael. This particular issue has been determined not to be a conflict of interest for me to participate. And so I will be participating on this, but I will evaluate anything like this in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Bert. Go ahead, Ray.
Good morning. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning to present this item. This item would authorize execution of the third amendment to PSA number 2017 D30, San Rafael Transportation Center relocation analysis, environmental clearance and preliminary design, in the amount not to exceed $1,647,259. It would also increase the project contingency by $104,026 to a total of $368,289, which is equal to 10% of the contract amount plus the amount of the third amendment. And finally, it would authorize a budget increase of $1,751,285 in the fiscal year 22-23 bus division capital budget for project 1717 to bring the revised project budget to $4,658,178. A bit of background on the project. On September 22nd, 2017, the board authorized the award of PSA 2017 D30 to Kimley Horn and Associates to perform work towards replacing the current Santa Fe Transit Center. The work involved finding the most feasible site for the transit center in downtown Santa Fe and performing environmental clearance and preliminary design for the new facility. In the spring of 2019, the general manager administratively approved the first amendment in the amount of $218,852. This amendment addressed a number of needs that arose out of a series of community stakeholder meetings. The second amendment in the amount of $847,684 was approved by a district board in July of 2020. This amendment addressed needs determined through the environmental screening process. These additional needs included expanding the environmental analysis to include all three of the final three project alternatives rather than a single project alternative. The work involved additional tasks for the transportation and environmental analysis and preliminary design phases, as well as additional public outreach. The draft environmental impact report, or EIR, was released in August of 2021. The initial 60-day public comment period was expanded an additional 3 weeks at the request of Marin Transit. After receiving extensive comments from stakeholder agencies, community-based organizations, and the general public, it was determined that additional analysis of the preferred alternative was necessary in order to prepare a more comprehensive final EIR. The additional work under the third amendment includes additional outreach and public engagement to the general public, but also focuses on low-income and minority populations, which comprise a large portion of transit users. It also prepares materials associated with work to extend the draft EIR deadline and stakeholder coordination. Addresses revisions to the preferred alternative during the draft review period, and additional work to further develop design of the preferred alternative and respond to comments and requests in preparation of the final EIR. And also handles additional work to meet NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act requirements. And it also has includes additional structural engineering and architecture evaluations related to the design of the preferred alternative, including additional community outreach and engagement via establishment of a community design advisory group. Kimley Horn has presented a proposed scope and amendment based on discussions with the district project team in the amount of $1,647,259. This amount is based on billing rates of the initial contract with 2022 salary escalations factored in. The district's DBE program administrator has determined that Kimley Horn's subconsultants will perform 9.4% of the proposed scope of the work in this amendment. District staff has determined that the additional work hours are reasonable and consistent with direction given, and that the amount proposed by Kimley Horn is fair and reasonable. Therefore, staff proposes that the Building and Operating Committee recommend that the board authorize execution of the third amendment to PSA number 2017 B30 with Kimley Horn in the amount not to exceed $1,647,259 to perform the additional services cited in its report, and that the contingency for this amendment be established in the amount of $455,415. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you so much for that presentation. Are there any questions or comments from directors at this time? And I'm scanning my screen. I don't see, oh yeah, Jim, I see you. Go ahead.
Good morning. On page 9, in the middle of page 9, it mentions that this would DB consultants, subconsultants would perform 9.4% of the additional proposed scope of work. Where does that put the DBE percentage for the entire project? Do we know that?
The DBE percent for the entire project?
Yes.
I don't think we have an answer to that today,
Okay.
Director Maston, but staff can follow up and send you an email with
Okay.
how we think it'll affect the ultimate percentage.
Yeah, you don't need to spend a whole lot of time on it. It was just out of curiosity since that was in there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. And I see Dennis, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Gavarino.
I just wanted to thank staff for the additional funds for the additional outreach to the community and transit riders in San Rafael in particular. And just wanted to ask when we may see the next public update on this project.
So the city raised a lot of questions, and we spent a lot of time with city staff going through the questions and responding to them. The next step in the process is we think we finalized all the open issues with their traffic engineer just a couple days ago. So the next step is that our CEQA attorney and the city CEQA attorney will meet and confer on whether or not anything that's transpired since we released the draft EIR would trigger the legal obligation to reissue a draft EIR, or if legally it's acceptable and normal to proceed with a final EIR. After the attorneys meet and reach a consensus, then we'll have a meeting with a couple of our directors, with the mayor and one of the council members, and city management and myself to review that and talk about next steps. But we want to get this moving as quickly as possible. And so we're cautiously optimistic that we'll have a final EIR out on the street before too long. But it is contingent upon the attorneys coming together and having a meeting of the minds, which we are cautiously optimistic in favor of.
Yeah, thank you, Devin.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands up or arms waving. So that concludes discussion on item number 4. But before we take our vote, is there anyone, Amaret, from the public who wishes to speak on this item?
Thank you, Chair Garbarino. We do have one speaker. It will be Mr. Pilpel.
Great.
And
Welcome,
Mr.
David.
Pilpel, there you go.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Excellent. Okay, so on this item, I support the additional consultant work proposed here for the SRTC relocation project. I hope that discussions with the city of San Rafael move along, that an EIR is back here soon for certification. If it requires recirculation, then we'll do that, but I suspect that it may not require recirculation. In any event, that the EIR is back for certification as soon as possible, that the under the freeway alternative is rejected as it properly should be, and that relocation and adaptive reuse of the Whistle Stop building is pursued. Thanks to Ron Downing and Ray Santiago of staff, and to Adam Dankberg and the project team from Kimley Horn and their subs. And thanks to Director Hill for his disclosure. Anyway, I support this item. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, David, for your comments. Thank you, colleagues. Now, may I have a motion on agenda item number 4 to approve actions relative to professional services agreement number 2017 D30.
So moved, Rabbit.
Thank you, David. May I have a second?
Second, Maston.
Thank you, Jim. Madam Secretary, another roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Voting on item number 4 with the first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is also absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosbol.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran. Oh, we lost Director Cochran. Okay, First President Tirio.
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Great, thank you. We have 11 ayes. Thank you.
Wonderful. That motion passes. We will move on now to agenda item number 5 to approve award of contract number 2022 F012, engineering and detailed design services for the construction of a new build ferry to Aurora Marine Design. The staff report begins on page 11, and I believe Michael Hoffman is here in lieu of Jim Swindler. Is that right? And he will present this report. Michael, if I'm correct, please begin your presentation.
You are correct, and thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, members of the committee. The item before you is a recommendation to approve award of contract number 2022 F12, engineering and design services necessary for the construction of a new ferry to Aurora Marine Design of San Diego, California, for a total not to exceed amount of $1,943,173.50. Design and construction of this new ferry will allow the district to provide continued necessary ferry service and comply with California Air Resource Board's recently amended commercial hovercraft regulation. To design this new vessel and prepare shipyard specifications for the actual construction, the district is in need of engineering and detailed design services to support the construction. As such, on March 7, 2022, the district issued a request for a statement of qualifications and proposals for engineering and design, detailed design services seeking proposals from qualified firms. The services are broken down into 4 phases. Phase 1, the preliminary design analysis. This is where the heavy lifting is done. The critical decisions are made, such as analysis of what propulsion systems will be in the vessel, the general arrangements of equipment, and how many passengers the vessel may carry. During this phase, ferry engineering will seek input from ferry division staff, including vessel masters, mechanics, as well as members of the Ferry Passenger Advisory Committee. Phase 2 is where the decisions will be made as to the level of detail necessary in the drawing package and the specifications to ensure the shipyard has sufficient information to accurately understand what it is we are asking for, and also to ensure all shipyards that are bidding on the same thing. Phase 3 is development of the full scope of services and technical specifications and drawings and data. And finally, phase 4 is the developments of the final as-built drawings. The request for qualifications and proposal was posted to the district's procurement portal, and notifications were sent to all registered firms and advertised in a number of publications, including Small Business Exchange, Marine Log, and other industry publications. Notice was also sent to 15 potential respondents and over 1,600 business enterprises, including SPEs and DBEs. On May 6, 2022, 4 highly qualified naval architect and marine engineering firms submitted proposals. Aurora Marine Design out of San Diego, BMT out of the United Kingdom, Elliott Bay Design out of Seattle, and Incat Crowther America out of Lafayette, Louisiana. In accordance with the process set forth in the RFP, a selection committee comprised of district ferry division staff and an independent consultant reviewed and evaluated each technical proposal based on 3 criteria: team qualifications and experience, project understanding and approach, and the firm's qualifications. CARB's amended commercial hovercraft regulation has significant impact to the district's ferry fleet, requiring the repower or replacement of each vessel. 2 of the district's high-speed vessels, the Del Norte and Mendocino, will be out of compliance and require replacement at the end of 2024. Subsequent to that, the other 2 high-speed vessels without an extension will be out of compliance and require replacement in 2025. Prior to reaching this decision to move forward with design and construction of a new high-speed catamaran, the district commissioned an engineering firm to accomplish a study in the hopes that we might repower our existing high-speed vessels to comply with the current CARB rule. The study, however, and unfortunately determined that based on cost and the age of the vessels, coupled with what would be a decline in the passenger count and vessel speed, the best option was new construction. From a planning standpoint, we estimate it will take 3 years from award of this contract for the first vessel to be constructed and delivered to the district. Over the next 3 years, given the addition of Angel Island and Tiburon midday and weekend ferry service, it is anticipated that demand for ferry service will likely exceed that of pre-COVID levels. Understanding the importance and significance of this decision throughout the design process, there will be no higher focus than exploring the availability of proven, reliable technology to support zero-emission vessels. The district is actively engaging in zero-emission technology by joining Water Emergency Transportation Authority in a partnership on the hydrogen vessel Sea Change. The district also has an agreement with and has been working with Shell Oil to learn more about the technology available for vessel electrification and shoreside infrastructure necessary to support rapid charging. At the same time, I personally had the pleasure of joining a group that also included Water Emergency Transportation Authority and policymakers from California Energy Commission and CARB on a trip to visit and speak with ferry vessel operators in Norway about their advances in zero-emission propulsion ferry systems on vessels. One of the objectives of this trip was to explore and experience new zero-emission vessel technology while on the lookout for available technology that could support an electric high-speed vessel. In short, the trip yielded examples of where the industry is headed with respect to zero-emission, and leaves no question that it is a matter of when, not if, advances in technology will readily support high-speed vessels in an operating profile such as ours. District staff will periodically provide progress reports to the Building and Operating Committee with respect to decarbonization plans for the future. And with that, staff is available to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Michael, for your presentation. And I laud, I'm sure I'm speaking for my colleagues, your efforts on zero emission ferries as well. Thank you so much from all of us. Are there any other questions, comments from directors on item number 5? Oh, goody. I see lots of hands. This is great. Okay, I'll start with my screen here with Bert, then Jim, then Barb, then Holly. Got it. Go ahead, Bert.
Yeah, thank you. Two things. The clean emission vessels means that it meets CARB's requirement for the use of clean diesel, essentially. But that means that it will be clean for the Bay Area for use, but not necessarily in the entire system, because clean diesel does have a carbon effect in the manufacture. So that's one we need to understand. And certainly we want to phase to the point that we don't need to do that. But that hybrid design, as I understand, is something we need to be conscious of, that this is a temporary, not a permanent in that case. The second thing I wanted to comment on is we hear today a new generation of ferries that will be now or later fully electric in the whole process. And I would ask, in the design of the structure, the superstructure and everything else, you consider how you will handle the charging systems, like in Norway, in the design, so that you don't have to do huge major retrofits when that time comes, which it will probably do well within this decade. And you take the consideration of the end point that we want to be in electrification in the design of the vessels that we go in from now on. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert, very much. And Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. My first one is, what is the expected life span of this new ferry?
So the FTA gives us a 25-year useful life for our ferry vessels.
Okay, thank you. My other question is, first a comment, I'm really happy to hear how much effort you've put into looking at zero emission ferries as well as infrastructure. And my question is about the infrastructure. Have we given any thought to how we might manage a split fleet between fossil fuel powered ferries and zero emission ferries? It sounds like you did talk to somebody about their facilities, and I'm just curious what if anything you've thought about or looked at.
So our 10-year plan includes replacement of San Francisco ferry terminal as well as Larkspur, and in that plan we will definitely be discussing ways to improve upon and include charging infrastructure for the future.
If I might add, all transit operators in California are facing similar challenges. So here in the Bay Area, the transit operators have gotten together with MTC to do a coordinated study, because we've all done our own individual studies, to look at how we could roll out region-wide the infrastructure and do joint procurements, not just on buses and on boats, but also joint procurements on the construction infrastructure, as opposed to 27 agencies putting out construction contracts at the same time. So that work is just launching. MTC anticipates engaging a consultant in the next couple of months. Transit operators will be part of that. And at the Bridge District and WEDA's insistence, it will include ferries, not just buses. So we think it's an important regional issue from the standpoint of efficiency of taxpayer money, that we collectively do larger procurements, as well as ensuring that we have interoperability, so that our ferry boat doesn't plug in on the left side and WEDA's plugs in on the right side. Because in the event of disasters, emergencies, or other challenges, interoperability is vital for transportation in our country as well as in the Bay Area.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for your answers.
Hey, Barb.
Yes, thank you. I'll try to be coherent this. I'm not a real ferry expert, but I'll tell you that I have done a lot of reading after this agenda item came. I guess my questions are, I want to say bone pile questions. We're going to end up with high-speed ferries in our bone pile, which is means that they aren't usable anymore. And it occurs to me that if this ferry is going to take 3 years to build, that maybe the specs for it probably aren't too early. I mean, I'm prepared to vote for this, but 3 years, in 3 years, there's going to be a significant change in what happens with the technology and with the infrastructure. And we may not have the answer to this now, but if all of the ferry agencies in the Bay Area have the same goals, it might, in my mind, be a little premature to go ahead and pull the trigger on a ferry that's going to be outdated and not part of the real system by the time it's actually delivered to us in 3 years. I probably won't be around, to see it delivered, or if it takes 10 years, as Michael said, but somebody will be around and someone will be struggling with the same issues, the same air quality issues. And to bring a ferry into our fleet that won't last very long, won't last the whole 25 years that its life is, we'll be sitting here and saying, gee, I wish we'd have waited another 3 or 4 years until the technology and the infrastructure was really in place before we spent our millions of dollars on a new ferry. And I do understand that keeps the old ferries, the bone pile ferries, on the bay a little bit longer. And I'm not sure what that trade-off is, but maybe someone who's smarter than I about this can help me understand that trade-off.
I'll jump in and then Mike can add on and correct. We should have had you testify on behalf of the district director par to CARB, because the CARB rule kind of sets up obsolescence. It sets up that we have to do something now with our boats, even though we're on the cusp of doing something a lot better just a short time later. So they're basically forcing us to replace some vessels that realistically, to one of the earlier director's comments, will have to be somehow miraculously repowered a couple years later. But the reality is, we operate in a box, and the walls of the box are defined by others through their regulations and laws. And CARB has adopted a regulation that requires us to go down a path, unfortunately, based on the available technology today, to invest in some ferry boats that meet certain requirements that are a little cleaner than what we have today, but that unfortunately, before their service life is anywhere near where it should be, there'll be better technology. And I don't know, Mike, is that a fair assessment of the situation?
It is. And one thing I might add to that is, when we get into negotiations with our design firm, one thing we want to really think about is the hull form that we use. We would like to be able to convert that potentially to electric down the road. So, the vessel that we create, if it ends up being a diesel vessel, we would like to have that option down the road to convert it over to electric.
Great. Thank you, Barb.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Barb. You will be here for the ribbon cutting in 5, 3, 10 years. So I have every assurance of that. And I feel the district's pain as well. We're going through the same thing with our own fleet. With that, I'll ask Holly for your comment or question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Again, I don't think I could have said it better than Director Parr. I want to echo her comments and also say that I am very relieved to see that staff and Michael Hoffman and our general manager are looking, down the road and trying to get a ferry that is going to be more easily modified to electric, and that is the goal. And if there's any way to, during the build, if new technology comes up, if there's any way to incorporate that or modify it in the actual build, I do hope that you will come back to the board of directors. And I think that we would be committed to doing what we can to get a cleaner, greener vessel that will last a lot longer. And I just wanted to also thank you for your work.
Thank you, Holly. Dick, I think you're next.
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. Do we have a sense as to whether the other ferry and transit agencies, whether or not the 1.9 million is in the range of what other ferries are being built for?
That's the design cost, not the build cost, Dick. It's good you're sitting down because the build cost is significantly more.
Yeah, no, I didn't phrase that right. Sorry. But that's, you feel comfortable with that price as far as
Yes.
what's in the market? Yeah.
Yeah, staff's gone through a detailed review of the, what's required to do the amount of work that's contemplated here. And so, yes.
Okay. And then I don't recall a prior contract involving ferries where we have 91.43% SBE participation. So I guess that's because Aurora Marine Design itself is a DBE, but my compliments on that. So thank you.
To clarify, they're an SBE, not a DBE. The Federal Transit Administration is different from federal highways, so we use race-conscious goals for Caltrans projects based on Caltrans disparity study. For FTA, they hope to achieve greater usage through having SBE goals as well as DBE goals. But we're very pleased that it is an SBE that'll be doing the lion's share of the work.
Okay. Yeah, I see the DB is only 1.67. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I know we're having a little bit of an issue with some background funny stuff, which is beyond my pay grade, as most of you know, otherwise I wouldn't ask you to wave your arms. But if everyone could just check their muting. And I don't see any other hands raised or waved or, so I will then ask if there's anyone, Amaret, from the public wishing to speak on this item.
We have no speakers for this item.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, may I have a motion on agenda item number 5 to approve award of contract number 2022F012?
So moved, Rabbit.
Lots of movement, and may I have a second? Perhaps one of those could be a second.
Second.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, and a roll call vote, please.
Thank you. We're voting on item number 5 with the first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Grosball.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Meston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Thank you. Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Tirio.
Yes.
Thank you. We have 13 ayes.
Thank you, and that means that that motion passes. We will now move on to agenda item 6 on our agenda. Informational monthly report from board appointees on the Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit Board. And I'll start off the report with, as we all harken back to our school days, the Cliff Notes that are provided, I must say, and give acknowledgement to Eddie Cummings, our general manager, who I hope that all of you have had the chance to meet. He's just a rock star in his field. He's filled big shoes and he's done a great job. So I have, he had a 5-part report, and I'm happy to give the complete details and send them to Amaret if anyone's interested. But they essentially included a ridership update, and I don't want to take the stage from any of my colleagues, David or Barb. So sit in the wings, please, and correct or add. Average weekly ridership does continue to grow. This is a very optimistic report. In July, it was up 5%, for instance, over June. August has been relatively flat, but we expect a bump once school starts. This July's ridership, however, is 78% up over last July 2021's ridership. New freight customer, we have, I think, 4 existing freight customers currently, and as you all know, we're moving into that line of work as well. And the new customer's name is Viper Railcar Storage. This new agreement is for up to 50 non-hazmat rail cars with a potential revenue of $100,000 annually. Additional revenue may be also generated through switching fees. SMART is working also with other storage brokers to increase our business with a potential storage capacity of 200 rail cars that probably will not have the same experience that we've had in the past in Shelbyville. As Dennis mentioned earlier, there is a lengthy report in Eddie's report and in the link that Dennis mentioned from the Bay Area Council's employer survey, showing that of the 78 respondents, they have brought their workers back to one form or another, 1, 2, 3 days back to work. 57% of large employers reporting they are already operating at the new normal. Happy for them. I'm still seeking that out. 76% of employers expect a new normal within 3 to 4 months. It's kind of like waiting for Godot. And 21% are currently reporting that our employees are coming back 0 days per week, but 54% are reporting that they're coming back 3 days per week. Eddie continues on with the optimistic perspective that SMART's ability to continue to adapt as the Golden Gate Bridge District is very bright. Finally, the Clipper Pass effort, MTC, as many of you well know, is underway and will help students getting to school, and specifically for SMART, that would be the Santa Rosa Junior College students. And with that, again, I'm happy to send this 6-page report on to those who are interested via Amaret. And Barb or David, do you have anything that you'd like to add? Well, there you have it.
I think David's ready to speak.
Okay, David, go ahead.
I was waiting for you, Barb, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we did extend the fare reductions and the free parking at the smart owned operated facilities, and very happy about that. The Giants games, we've taken that one from the district. We are continuing to operate. We did I think a 5-game study, and then extended that. That is not necessarily a profit center due to the overhead or the overtime required of the crews to wait for the game to be over, but it is very convenient and allows people to get to and from the ballpark without driving. And I think the biggest news that Eddie and crew continue to work on the freight customers, as was mentioned. That contract for storage, which is the best kind of contract you can have, is for only 1/4 of the capacity of what we have out there, and that's worth about $100,000 a year. So really trying to get some more cars stored, and you also get some money as you move them around and shift them as well. So those are great. And we did have a Sonoma County grand jury report that we did respond to. The board as a whole went through that process very well. Really, I think it's about a new, personally, I think it's about a new public entity oversight. The oversight was dictated by the measure, and we're going to be expanding oversight through citizen committees, but can actually do what the measure doesn't tell you to do. So that's moving forward as well. But all things are going well. And as Dennis mentioned earlier on the ridership, it is up, it's flat. I think this last month or so, year over year, I think that July number was up 78%. So those are huge increases. At the same time, we're kind of hoping at the local level to see what the start of school will do for ridership going forward, and taking advantage of the off-peak commute hour trips, like the Giants games, like all the different events, the fairs and things that were happening within the 2 counties. Opportunity.
Right. I was just going to mention the Sonoma County Fair. The other thing that I thought was interesting was the city of Santa Rosa has a scooter share program. Mm-hmm. And it's been very successful, and they reported on that. And of course, SMART is always looking at the first and last mile, how we can enhance that first and last mile so that we can entice more riders to use us because they have easy access. So we're looking forward to that. We also had some preliminary discussions about overnight parking at some of our facilities, especially at the airport, where people would they would need to have overnight parking. So that's not right. I got that backwards. Anyway, the ones that service the airport so that people could get on the plane, be gone for a day or two, and still be able to park in our lots, which they currently cannot. So it was an interesting, lots of little pieces. As David mentioned, we were pretty proud of our grand jury responses, trying to walk the line between what the measure said and what people thought the measure said about citizen oversight. So I think we'll get there. I think you'll see some great changes.
Great. Thanks, David and Barb, once again. Are there any directors, and I can see Bert's hand up, who have comments or questions regarding the SMART report? Go ahead, Bert.
I just want to thank very much just for putting a limit on the addition of more gas stations. Thank you very much.
All good. Anyone else? Okay, that concludes our discussion on item number 6. But before we move on, is there anyone from the public, Amaret, who's wishing to speak on this item? I'm getting really good at lip reading, and I think I saw her. No,
Yeah.
right.
We have no speakers for this item.
Gotcha. Okay. So no action is required on this item. I think that moot, not moot, whatever, has given us all that gift of lip reading. So we'll move on to item number 7. The status report on engineering projects begins on page 17 of your report, and Ava will present that. Ava, please proceed with your informational report.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my written report is before you, and I need to make a correction for the record. So on page 6 of the engineer's report, which is page 22 of the meeting documents at the very bottom, I would like to correct that the fabrication of the new travelers has not begun yet. And I wish we would start this work. However, for the record, the travelers are still not fabricated. And with this, I'll be happy to answer any question the committee may have for me.
Thank you so much, Ava, for your report. Colleagues, are there any questions for her on her engineering report? I'm not seeing any. There is no action, and I'm assuming that there's none for the public. Amaret either, just checking in.
Correct. We have no speakers on this item.
Gotcha. There is no action associated with item number 7. And so we will move on then to item number 8, public comment.
And we have no other speakers.
Okay, thank you. We've reached the end of the agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? Y'all want to just keep going? Thanks, Holly. Okay.
Second.
Second, great. Hearing no objections, this concludes the meeting of the Building and Operating Committee.